My name is Stacy White. I'm 30 years old. On January 18th, 2026, at my engagement party, my mother did something I will never forget. She looked at my fiancé in his vintage midnight blue wool suit, smiled sweetly, and said loud enough for all 26 relatives to hear, "You'd really trade this family for a man wearing secondhand clothes? A man with nothing?" 14 people laughed. My father nodded in agreement. I took my fiancé's hand, ready to walk out the door. That's when his 81-year-old grandfather, sitting quietly in a wheelchair, slowly raised his hand, pointed straight at that hand-stitched suit, and spoke 7 words that shattered everything I thought I knew. "Your parents owe you the truth about that suit." The room went completely silent. What my mother didn't know was that the man who made that suit was someone she had spent 40 years trying to erase from our family. And in the next 10 minutes, every lie she built her perfect life on was about to be exposed. But before I continue, please take a moment to like and subscribe, only if you're genuinely enjoying the story so far. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from right now and what time is it there? Now, to understand why that suit could destroy my family, let me take you back. I'm a senior textile curator at the DeYoung Museum in San Francisco. For 6 years, I've worked in the costume and textile history department, preserving vintage fashion artifacts from 1850 to 1980. My job is to keep what other people throw away. Every stitch tells a story. Every garment carries the fingerprint of the hands that made it. I see each piece not just as clothing, but as a historical artifact. In 2024, I curated an exhibition called Master Tailors of North Beach, 1950 to 1980. It drew 15,000 visitors over 6 months. I spent weeks researching the craftsmen of that era, writing wall text, studying techniques. There were 3 pieces in our collection labeled Castellano Bespoke, donated anonymously in 2023. I wrote about them extensively. The craftsmanship was museum quality, hand-stitched lapels, wooden buttons carved with intricate patterns, every detail perfect. I called the maker artist unknown, working circa 1970s, exemplifies the pinnacle of Italian-American tailoring tradition. I had no idea I was writing about my own grandfather. My parents are Richard and Patricia White. My father is 68, retired from what he called luxury goods consulting. My mother is 64, a former corporate lawyer. They live in Seacliff, a gated community with ocean views. Their house is worth $4.2 million. We had dinner once a month at Gary Danko, a Michelin star restaurant in North Point. Always table 8. Always the same reservation they'd held for 15 years. My mother would order Dover sole, my father, the Chateauneuf du Pape. They tipped exactly 22% every time. My mother used to say, "We appreciate quality, not sentimentality, Stacy." My father would add, "Presentation is everything. People judge you by what they see first." I learned early not to ask about my grandparents. When I was 8, I asked my mother about her parents. She was holding a wine glass. It slipped from her hand and shattered on the marble floor. She looked at me with something I couldn't name then, but recognize now as fear. "They passed away before you were born, darling," she said, kneeling to pick up glass shards with trembling fingers. "We don't talk about sad things." I never asked again. But I remember something else. I was 4 years old, playing in the attic of our Seacliff house. I found a box buried under old linens. Inside was a small vest, navy blue with 4 wooden buttons. The buttons were carved by hand, each one showing a delicate leaf pattern. The fabric was the softest thing I'd ever touched. I put it on. It was a little tight, even at 4. My mother came upstairs and saw me. Her face went white. "Where did you get that?" She grabbed my arm hard enough to bruise. "Give it to mommy right now. That's old trash, baby. We don't keep trash." She pulled the vest off me and disappeared with it. 2 days later, I looked everywhere. It was gone. My mother bought me a pink Gap Kids dress instead. "This is much prettier, sweetheart," she said, her voice too bright. "New things are always better." I cried for 3 days. Not because I wanted the dress, because I couldn't forget the feel of that wool, the carved buttons. I didn't understand why touching something so beautiful had made my mother so afraid. Years later, working as a curator, I still thought about that vest. The hand-stitched collar, the wooden buttons with their leaf patterns. I wondered sometimes if it had been real or if I'd dreamed it. I met Alex Bennett in March 2024 at a museum fundraiser. He was 34 then, tall and quiet, wearing a charcoal gray vintage suit that fit him like water. While everyone else was networking, he stood in front of a display case studying a 1940s evening gown. After my talk on artisan tailoring, he sent me an email. "Ms. White, your presentation was fascinating. I collect stories, not just garments. Would you have coffee to discuss the 3 Castellano pieces in your collection? I've been searching for his work for years." Alex Bennett. We met at Blue Bottle in Hayes Valley. He told me he owned over 200 vintage suits, each one purchased from estate sales, vintage shops, private collectors across the country. "Fast fashion killed craftsmanship," he said, stirring his coffee. "These suits are monuments to hands that cared. Every stitch was a choice. Every measurement was personal. The tailors knew their clients' names. They knew their children's names. That's what I collect. That intimacy." I understood. It's what I felt every time I cataloged a piece for the museum. The ghost of the maker still lived in the work. Over 10 months, Alex and I built something I'd never had with anyone else. He lived in a Hayes Valley loft with exposed brick and morning light. He drove a 1985 Mercedes diesel, cream-colored, restored with care. We'd have picnics in Dolores Park, hike the Marin Headlands, eat at small bistros where the owners knew him by name. "I don't need new things, Stacy," he told me once. "I need things made right. That car has 300,000 miles and will run another 300,000 because it was engineered with integrity." Same with these suits. Same with relationships. He proposed in December 2025 in the museum gallery where we'd met. After hours, just the two of us under string lights. The ring was a vintage 1940s platinum band with an ethically sourced sapphire. $8,500. He told me the price because he said, "Transparency matters." No diamond. I didn't want conflict stones. He understood without me having to explain. When Alex met my parents for the first time in November 2025, I watched my mother's smile freeze. We were at their house for dinner. My mother asked, "What exactly do you do, Alexander?" "I work in textile preservation and heritage brand consulting," Alex said. My father frowned. "That's very niche. How does one make a living in that field?" Alex smiled. "I do all right." After he left, my mother pulled me aside in the kitchen. "Darling, he's charming, but is he stable?" If you've been in a situation where your family looked down on the person you love, where they made you feel like you had to defend your choice just to breathe, like this comment right now and tell me where you're watching from. I read every single one. The pressure got worse after we announced our engagement. We did it over dinner at Gary Danko on December 20th, 2025. My mother's champagne toast was tight-lipped. My father put down his menu. "So, Alexander," my mother said, voice light but eyes hard. "No family wealth to speak of? What about inheritance? Trust funds? Your grandfather is still alive, you said?" "Grandpa Charles is 81 and in good health," Alex replied calmly. "We don't discuss his finances." My father laughed, short, sharp. "That usually means there aren't any to discuss." The bill came to $680. My father made a show of signing it. "Well, we'll be covering a lot of expenses, I imagine. Your vintage clothing business probably doesn't leave much margin." Alex didn't react. Under the table, my hand shook. Driving home, I cried. Alex held my hand at every red light. "They're testing me," he said. "Let them. I know who I am." "I'm so sorry," I whispered. "Don't be. They'll see eventually." Christmas was worse. We went to my parents' house on December 25th. Alex brought thoughtful gifts. For my father, a first edition book on San Francisco architecture. $600. For my mother, a 1950s Hermes silk scarf he'd found at an estate sale. $800. My mother opened the scarf. Her lip curled. "Oh. How vintage." "Richard, look. It's used." My father nodded. "That's very thoughtful, Alex. But we tend to prefer new things. Patricia has allergies to secondhand fabrics, actually." "She doesn't. She has no allergies." It was a lie, and we all knew it. My mother's gift to Alex was a $50 Williams-Sonoma gift card. My father's gift to me, opened in front of Alex, was a check for $10,000 with a note. "For your future, sweetheart. Real security." The message was clear. On January 15th, 3 days before the engagement party, my mother called. "Come to the house. Just us. Mother-daughter talk." My father was conveniently playing golf. My mother sat in the sunroom overlooking the Pacific. January light made everything look cold and beautiful. "Stacy, I'm going to be direct." She slid an envelope across the glass table. "It's not too late to reconsider. I'm not saying don't marry him ever. Just postpone. 6 months. Think clearly." I opened the envelope. Cash. $100 bills. $50,000. "Take a trip to Europe," she said. "Clear your head. If you still want him after that, fine. But give yourself options." She opened a wooden jewelry box. Inside was a diamond necklace that caught the light like broken glass. 28 carats. "This is a Tiffany legacy piece," she said. "Worth $85,000. It could be yours. For your real wedding. To someone appropriate." I stood. Left the envelope on the table. "I love him, Mom. Why can't you just be happy for me?" Her face went cold. Ice over stone. "Because we know what poverty looks like, Stacy. Your father and I clawed our way up from nothing. We won't watch you throw it away on a man who can't even afford a new suit." I walked out. Her last words followed me. "Don't say I didn't warn you." The morning of January 18th, my father called at 9 a.m. "Big day, sweetheart. Listen, Uncle Charles will be there tonight. You remember Charles Harrington? Tech investor, net worth around $12 million, just divorced, still very sharp at 52. I mentioned you're a curator. He's interested in art. Just keep an open mind." "Dad, I'm getting engaged today." "I'm just saying, Charles drives a Bentley Continental, has a house in Tahoe and one in Nob Hill. That's the kind of man who can support a family long term." I hung up shaking. I texted Alex. "They're trying to set me up with another man at our own engagement party." He replied, "Let them show everyone who they really are. I'll be there at 6:30, wearing something special." I realized then, my parents didn't hate Alex. They hated losing control. This party wasn't a celebration. It was an intervention. The Pacific Heights Club sits on a hill with views that make you understand why people spend their lives chasing money. The chandelier room has 30-foot ceilings, crystal fixtures from the 1920s, parquet floors that echo. My mother had rented it for $18,000, 26 guests, 8 round tables. Table 1 was the head table with place cards. Stacy, Alex, Richard, Patricia, Grandpa Charles Bennett, Uncle Charles Harrington, Aunt Rebecca, Cousin David. I arrived at 6:30 p.m. The room was already 68 degrees, set too cold, like my mother's smile. A string quartet played Vivaldi. 18 bottles of Veuve Clicquot La Grande Dame sat on ice, $185 per bottle. My cousin Jennifer caught me near the entrance. She was 28, kind. "Your mom said your fiancé works in..." Vintage clothes? Like he sells them online or something? He's a textile preservation specialist, I said, forcing the words to sound light. Oh, she said. The pause said everything. That's nice. At 6:45, the room went quiet. I turned. Alex was walking in, and I forgot how to breathe. The suit was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen outside a museum. Midnight blue Italian wool, almost black in the dim light, deep blue under the chandeliers. A three-piece bespoke: jacket, waistcoat, trousers. The fit was perfect. Shoulders exact. Sleeves showing a 1/4 inch of white shirt cuff. The drape was water, but it was the details that stopped me. Hand-stitched peak lapels with working buttonholes. A waistcoat with 6 buttons. Back panel in matching silk. Trousers with hand-sewn cuffs. And the buttons. 4 wooden buttons on the jacket front. Each one hand-carved with an intricate leaf pattern. Rich walnut color. No two exactly alike. The suit was 58 years old. Not a moth hole, not a loose stitch. The wool still had its sheen. Alex kissed my cheek. You said your parents appreciate quality. Let's see if they recognize it. I looked over his shoulder. At the head table, in a wheelchair, Grandpa Charles Bennett, Alex's grandfather, 81 years old, was staring at the suit. His face had gone completely white. His hands gripped the armrest so hard his knuckles looked like bone. He said nothing. During cocktail hour, relatives circled Alex like sharks. Uncle Charles Harrington, the $12 million investor my father wanted me to meet, asked, "Interesting suit, Alex. Vintage?" 1968, Alex said. Hand-tailored in San Francisco. Ah, not Brioni then? Or Tom Ford? Alex smiled. Better. This was made by a master. Charles turned to me, loud enough for the table beside us to hear. Charming. Very bohemian. I caught whispers. Fragments. Aunt Rebecca to my mother. Is that suit from Goodwill? The buttons look homemade? Cousin David to a friend. Dude's wearing his grandpa's old suit. That's kinda sad. A guest I barely knew. I heard he deals vintage clothes out of his apartment. My mother's voice tight. This is humiliating. He's making us look poor by association. My mother grabbed my arm in the hallway. Did you know he was going to wear that? It's a beautiful suit, Mom. It's secondhand at our party. This is a statement, Stacy. He's disrespecting us. Or maybe you're disrespecting craftsmanship. Her jaw tightened. We'll discuss this later. Dinner started at 7:30. First course. Oysters on ice. My father tapped his champagne glass. Everyone, thank you for coming tonight. His voice carried that easy authority that had always made me want to please him. We're here to celebrate my daughter Stacy, who's always had, let's say, unique taste. Polite laughter rippled through the room. She's bringing us Alexander, who works with vintage items, clothing, I believe. More laughter. Louder this time. We're happy to welcome him, and we hope he can provide the life our daughter deserves. He raised his glass. To Stacy and Alexander. 14 people laughed. 8 smiled uncomfortably. 4, including Grandpa Bennett and 2 younger cousins, didn't react at all. Alex raised his glass calmly, drank. I tried to hold my fork. My hand shook. At the head table, Grandpa Bennett was staring at Alex's jacket, which hung on the chair back. For half a second, the interior lining caught the light. I saw it. Gold thread. A monogram. GC. I didn't know what it meant. But something about it made my stomach drop. I stood to respond to my father's toast. My mother's hand shot out. Sit down, darling. Don't make a scene. I sat. Under the table, Alex squeezed my hand. At 8:15, the main course arrived. Filet mignon. My mother stood. No announcement. No warning. She just started talking. I need to say something because I love my daughter too much to stay silent. The room went still. Forks stopped midair. Stacy is our only child. We gave her the best education money can buy. Stanford undergraduate, NYU for her master's in museum studies. We gave her every opportunity to succeed, to meet successful people, to build a real future. She paused, looked at Alex. And tonight, she's asking us to celebrate this. Her voice didn't rise. That made it worse. A man who wears secondhand suits to formal events because he can't afford new ones. A man with no family name, no portfolio, no trust fund, no prospects. A man who thinks textile preservation is a career. Someone gasped. Most people looked at their plates. Stacy, sweetheart. My mother's voice softened into something worse than anger. Pity. I'm asking you, in front of everyone who loves you, please reconsider. You'd really trade this family, this legacy, everything we built for you, for a man wearing someone else's old clothes? For a man with nothing? The room was a vacuum. 18 people stared at their plates. 6 stared at me with pity. 2 younger cousins looked furious at my mother. My father sat back, nodded slowly. Alex's face was completely neutral, but I felt his hand tense. At the head table, Grandpa Bennett gripped his wheelchair armrests, trembling. His mouth was a thin line. I opened my mouth. My mother cut me off. Your father and I didn't claw our way up from nothing to watch you settle. I stood, slowly. My legs felt distant. I'm sorry you feel that way, Mom. My voice was steady, calmer than I felt. But I know quality when I see it, and it's not in this room. I reached for Alex's hand. Let's go. He stood, straightened his waistcoat. The motion made the jacket's interior lining flash again. That monogram. G.C. Several guests saw it, didn't understand. My mother's face twisted. Stacy, sit down, don't be dramatic. We turned toward the exit 20 feet away. A hand raised. Slow, deliberate. Grandpa Bennett, in his wheelchair. 81 years old, frail, but his voice came out like iron. Wait. We stopped. Before you leave, Grandpa Bennett said, there's something these people need to know. He pointed directly at Alex's jacket. That suit. If he's wearing that suit, your parents owe you the truth about the man who made it. The room froze. 26 people turned. My mother staggered back, grabbed the edge of the table, her face drained of all color. My father stood so fast his chair scraped. Charles, this is not the time. Grandpa Bennett's voice got louder. The man who made that suit was Giovanni Castellano. He looked at my mother. Does that name mean anything to you, Patricia? My mother whispered. No. No, no, no. It was the first time in my life I'd heard my mother sound scared. Who is Giovanni Castellano? I asked. My voice came from somewhere far away. Why do you look like you've seen a ghost? My mother turned to my father. Panicked whisper loud enough for the head table to hear. How does he know? How does this boy know that name? My father moved toward Grandpa Bennett. Aggressive. Charles, you don't know what you're talking about. You're confused. You're 81 years old? Grandpa Bennett's voice was ice. My mind is perfectly clear, Richard. Unlike your conscience. I stepped toward the old man in the wheelchair. Please, tell me what's happening. Grandpa looked at my mother. Tell her yourself. Or I will. My mother's voice cracked. Get him out. Get them all out. Cousin Jennifer stood. She was 28 but sounded older. Actually, I want to hear this. Grandpa Charles has never lied about anything in his life. 2 more cousins stood. Uncle Charles Harrington, the $12 million backup plan, said quietly, Richard, if there's nothing to hide, let the man speak. The room split. 12 people leaned forward. 10 leaned back. 4 stood to leave. My mother looked around. She was losing control. I'd never seen that before. Grandpa Bennett looked at me. His eyes were kind, sad. Your mother's maiden name, before she married Richard, was Patricia Castellano. Giovanni Castellano was her father. Pause. Your grandfather. The floor tilted. I heard the words. Didn't understand them. What? I whispered. Giovanni Castellano was born in Naples, Italy in 1935. Grandpa Bennett's voice shook but held. He emigrated to America in 1958. 23 years old with nothing but his needle and his skill. He was a master tailor, trained in the old tradition where every stitch is by hand, every measurement precise to the millimeter. I couldn't move. By 1975, he'd opened an atelier in North Beach, 517 Columbus Avenue. His suits were worn by mayors, by visiting dignitaries, by Frank Sinatra when he came through San Francisco. Grandpa Bennett looked at Alex's jacket. His signature was wooden buttons, hand-carved from sustainable California hardwood, each one unique, like a fingerprint. I looked at the buttons on Alex's jacket. 4 wooden buttons, leaf pattern, no two exactly alike. Giovanni made approximately 300 suits in his career, Grandpa said. Everyone a work of art. I know because I was his business partner from 1970 to 1982. I watched him build that business stitch by stitch. He turned to my mother. And Patricia was his only daughter, born 1962. She grew up in that atelier, playing among bolts of fabric, watching her father create beauty. I turned to my mother. My whole body shook. Is this true? My voice broke. You told me your parents died before I was born. You said I had no grandparents. You lied? My mother was crying, silent tears. She wouldn't speak. My father tried. Stacy, this is ancient history. It's complicated. Did you lie to me for 30 years? My mother's whisper? Yes. The word hit like a fist. A memory. I'm 6 years old. Kindergarten. Mother's Day project. Everyone's drawing family trees. I ask my mother, where's Grandma and Grandpa on Mommy's side? She kneels down, smooths my hair. They're in heaven, sweetheart. They went there before you were born. We only have each other now. I drew angels where grandparents should be. Another memory crashed in. I gasped. That vest. I looked at my mother. When I was 4 years old? In the attic? Navy blue with wooden buttons. You ripped it out of my hands like I'd found a bomb. My mother nodded. Barely. That was his, wasn't it? My grandfather made that. She nodded again. It wasn't even made for me. The pieces fell into place. It was too small. It was made for you. When you were little, Giovanni made that vest for his daughter. My mother covered her face with her hands, sobbed. You kept it for 30 years, hidden in a box. One piece of him you couldn't throw away. And when I found it, when I touched something he made with love, you took it and you told me it was trash. My Aunt Rebecca whispered from a side table. Oh my God. Patty, what did you do? Grandpa Bennett continued, his voice heavy. Giovanni Castellano died on August 15th, 1983. He was 48 years old. The coroner's report listed cause of death as acute myocardial infarction, heart attack. He paused. But I was there in his final months. I visited him in his apartment in the Tenderloin, where he'd moved after losing everything. He'd lost 30 pounds, couldn't sleep, could barely eat. The doctor said his heart gave out from cardiac stress. I did the math. Fast. Giovanni died August 1983. I was born March 1995. 11 years, 6 months, 27 days. 12 years, I said. Numb. He died 12 years before I was born, and you told me he died before I was born. You weren't lying about the timeline. You just let me assume. Grandpa Bennett finished my thought. She let you assume he was already gone when she met your father. The truth is worse. Giovanni died in 1983. Your parents married in December 1982. Pause. Which means your grandfather was still alive when your mother chose Richard over him. I walked to my mother, voice cold. Why did he lose everything? What happened to his business? You said he owned an atelier in North Beach. You said he was successful. She didn't answer. My father stood. Stacy, we should discuss this privately. Sit down. He sat. I turned to Grandpa Bennett. Please finish. He pulled a folder from a bag attached to his wheelchair. He'd come prepared. March 14th, 1982. Contract between Giovanni Castellano and Richard White. He read from a photocopy. Mr. White, age 24, recent Stanford Business School graduate, approached Giovanni with an offer. Business partnership and capital investment agreement. Richard would invest $85,000 cash in exchange for 50% ownership of Castellano Bespoke and the right to modernize operations. Numbers started clicking in my head. Museum training, always check provenance. Giovanni's atelier was valued at $200,000, Grandpa said. Property lease, equipment, client list, trademark, reputation. Richard's $85,000 was supposedly for expansion. New location, hire assistants, marketing. He turned the page. Hidden in Section 7.3, page 8 of a 12-page contract, was a buyout clause. Either partner could force sale of the other's stake in case of material breach of management duties at fair market value as assessed by independent arbitrator selected by initiating party. I looked at my father. You were 24 years old. How did you have $85,000 in 1982? My father said quietly, family loan. Grandpa Bennett shook his head. Lie. I checked. His parents were middle-class teachers in Sacramento. He borrowed it from 3 different banks using falsified income statements. The fraud started before the contract was even signed. 6 months later, September 22, 1982, Richard triggered the buyout clause. Grandpa read from another document. Richard White filed notice of material breach, claiming Giovanni had failed to implement modernization strategies, refused to delegate design authority, and obstructed business development. The scam was simple, brutal. Giovanni bought in at 50% of $200,000, $100,000 worth of ownership. Richard's independent arbitrator was his former business school professor. The man valued Giovanni's stake at only $40,000. Market value of physical assets only, excluding goodwill and trademark. Giovanni was forced to sell for $40,000, lost $60,000 of value. Worse, Richard retained the trademark Castellano Bespoke, the client list, the storefront lease. Giovanni left with $40,000 cash. No business, no brand. Reputation damaged by breach claims. 3 months later, Grandpa said, Richard sold the trademark Castellano Bespoke to a New York luxury conglomerate for $180,000. He looked at me. Total profit for Richard, $140,000 in 1982 money. In today's money, that's about $380,000. I turned to my mother, horrified. You were 20 years old in 1982. You were in college. Dad was 24. How did you... I stopped. Oh God. You were dating him. When this happened. Grandpa Bennett nodded. Sad. Patricia was a sophomore at UC Berkeley. Pre-law. Richard was her boyfriend. When Giovanni got the partnership contract, he didn't understand the legal language. He asked his daughter, his brilliant daughter studying law, to review it for him. Grandpa's voice broke. Patricia told him it looked fine. Sign it, Papa. This man loves me. He wants to help us. My mother was sobbing into her hands. In September, when Richard filed the breach notice, Giovanni called you crying. Grandpa said to my mother, he begged you to look at the contract again, to help him fight it. You said you couldn't get involved in business disputes. He turned to me. 2 months later, December 1982, your parents married. Honeymoon in Maui. Paid for with your grandfather's money. The timeline was a knife. September 1982. Giovanni loses business. October. Richard receives $40,000 from forced buyout. November. Richard sells trademark for $180,000. December 18th. Richard and Patricia marry at San Francisco City Hall. Reception at the Fairmont Hotel. Patricia's father not invited. January 1983. Giovanni evicted from Atelier. Grandpa pulled out photocopies. Receipts from the Maui honeymoon. Grand Wailea Resort. 10 days. $12,000 in 1982. Richard's bank statement showed a deposit of $140,000 in November. Withdrawal of $15,000 in December for wedding expenses. You married him with your father's money, I said to my mother. My voice didn't sound like mine. You went to Maui while your father lost his home. And you didn't even invite him to your wedding. Grandpa Bennett's voice dropped. I visited Giovanni in June 1983. His last client had been in May, a father of the bride who wanted a suit for his daughter's wedding. Giovanni charged him $200. He used to charge $2,000 for a bespoke suit, but he needed money for rent. Pause. He gave the man all his remaining fabric as a gift. Told him, beautiful things should go to people who appreciate them, not rot in storage. Public record, probate inventory, Giovanni's final possessions, studio apartment in the Tenderloin, $450 a month. 2 months behind on rent. Bank account, $340. Assets, 1 sewing machine, 1 cutting table, a box of tools, 3 bolts of fabric, 1 photo album. Debts, $8,000 in medical bills and back rent. Funeral, county cremation, no service. August 15th, 1983, Grandpa said. Giovanni collapsed in his apartment. Alone. The landlord found him 2 days later. He looked at my mother. You didn't attend the funeral. You were in Napa Valley with Richard. Wine tasting. I could barely stand. Everything you own, everything you built, everything you told me to be proud of, you stole it from your own father and watched him die alone. You're probably screaming at your screen right now. If you want to know what Stacy does next, whether she forgives or sets boundaries, like and subscribe. The fallout is even more intense than what you just heard. Alex stood. Calm. He pulled out his phone. Mrs. White, you asked what I do. You said I work with vintage items. Let me clarify. He turned his phone toward the room. Bloomberg terminal screenshot, dated January 10th, 2026. I'm Alexander James Bennett, CEO and majority shareholder of Whitmore Luxury Group. We're a private equity firm specializing in heritage fashion preservation. We own 23 heritage fashion houses across Europe and North America. Our portfolio is currently valued at $4.3 billion. The room erupted in whispers. Uncle Charles Harrington gasped. Holy shit! Whitmore Luxury? You're that Bennett? My father stood, face red. That's not possible. You live in Hayes Valley. You drive a 1985 Mercedes. Alex cut him off. Because I choose to. I don't need a Bentley to know who I am, Mr. White. He turned to the room. In January 2024, Whitmore Luxury Group acquired the trademark Castellano Bespoke as part of a heritage brand preservation initiative. We paid $1.2 million for it. Not because it had commercial value, because it represented a master craftsman's legacy. He pulled up another document on his phone. During due diligence, our legal team discovered the full history of how that trademark was originally stolen. The 1982 contract, the fraudulent buyout, the forced sale, all documented in San Francisco Superior Court records. Alex looked at me. His voice softened. I didn't know you were Giovanni's granddaughter when I met you. I fell in love with you because you're brilliant and kind and you value the same things I do, preserving beauty, honoring craft. Pause. but when I realized the connection 8 months ago, I had a choice. He turned to my parents. I could have exposed you immediately, could have pursued legal action for reputational damage, could have destroyed you socially and financially. But I love Stacy, and I wanted to give you a chance to be decent human beings. He gestured to his jacket. So, I wore this suit tonight. One of only 11 surviving pieces Giovanni Castellano ever made. I wore it as a test. 11 out of 300. Giovanni made approximately 300 suits between 1958 and 1982, Alex explained. When he died, creditors seized his remaining inventory. About 40 finished pieces and 50 works in progress. They were auctioned off in 1984 to settle his debts. He touched his jacket. Over 40 years, those suits scattered across America. Some were destroyed by moths. Some were altered beyond recognition. Some were lost to fires, floods, estate cleanouts. I've spent 12 years tracking down survivors. This one came from an estate sale in Marin County in 2023. The widow selling it had no idea her late husband's jacket was made by a master. I paid $15,000 for it. He looked at my mother. Not because of the fabric, because of the hands that made it. Total spent on Giovanni's 11 suits. $340,000 over 12 years. You own 11 of my grandfather's suits? I whispered. Alex nodded. If you'd recognized quality when you saw it, Alex said to my parents. If you'd asked about the suit with respect, where did you get that beautiful piece? I would have told you everything. Offered reconciliation? His voice went cold. But you mocked it, called it trash, called me trash. So now everyone knows what you really are. Uncle Charles Harrington couldn't help himself. Whitmore Luxury Group? You started that? I heard about you in VC circles. My grandfather started a textile import business in 1960, Alex said. My father grew it into commercial real estate. When I graduated from Yale in 2012, I took my trust fund, $50 million, and pivoted to heritage preservation. We're now the largest private holder of artisan fashion brands in North America. Numbers. Real numbers. Personal net worth. $890 million. Annual income. 40 to 60 million, depending on acquisitions. Real estate. Alex owns the Hayes Valley building. Lives in one unit, rents the others. The 1985 Mercedes has $40,000 in restoration work. Runs perfectly. Lives on about $200,000 a year personal spending. Reinvests the rest. Charles Harrington was stunned. You're worth almost $1 billion and you let Patricia call you poor? Alex smiled. Cold. I wanted to see how far she'd go. My father sat back down. Broken. You set us up. No, sir. I gave you a chance to be good people. You chose cruelty. That's on you. Alex turned back to me. In 2023, I established the Castellano Legacy Fund, $50 million dedicated to preserving artisan craftsmanship worldwide. It funds apprenticeships for young tailors, seamstresses, shoemakers, leatherworkers. We support 120 artisans in 15 countries. His voice was gentle now. Every scholarship recipient gets the same letter. This grant honors Giovanni Castellano, master tailor of San Francisco, who believed beautiful things should be made by human hands. Your grandfather's name is on buildings now, Stacy. Fashion schools, museums. I couldn't breathe. And the 3 Castellano suits in De Young Museum's collection? Alex said quietly. The ones you've been curating. I donated them, anonymously, last year. I wanted you to know your grandfather's work even before you knew he existed. Everything clicked. The 2024 exhibition, Master Tailors of North Beach. I'd written the wall text for those 3 Castellano pieces. I'd spent weeks researching. I'd written, Artist unknown, working circa 1970s, exemplifies the pinnacle of Italian-American tailoring tradition. I wrote about my own grandfather, I whispered, and called him artist unknown. My mother sobbed. Stop. Please stop. I turned to her. You spend your entire life telling me to appreciate quality, to value legacy, to honor craftsmanship. My job, my career, is preserving textile history, and you erased your own father from existence. My voice didn't shake. You threw away his work like garbage. You let me write artist unknown on his suits because you were too ashamed to claim him. How many times did I ask about my heritage, about your childhood, about your parents? I stepped closer. Every single time, you lied. I turned to my father. You built your entire life on stealing from a 47-year-old immigrant craftsman. You talk about knowing what poverty looks like? You talk about clawing your way up from nothing? You created poverty for your wife's father, and then you erased him so I'd never ask questions. I listed what he'd bought with Giovanni's money. Museum training. I'd memorized every provenance document I'd ever read. See Cliff House down payment, 1985. $85,000. Exactly the amount you invested in Giovanni. Mercedes for Mom, 1984. 25,000. From Giovanni's trust fund intended for her law school. Gary Danko membership deposit, 1995, 15,000. My Stanford tuition, 2013 to 2017, $240,000, from returns on investment of stolen money. My voice broke, just once. Every good thing in my life was built on my grandfather's broken heart. My father tried. I gave him a fair price. You gave him $40,000 for a business worth $200,000. You sold his name for profit. Don't you dare say fair. I turned to face the entire room, all 26 people, witnesses. Here's what happens now. I'm marrying Alex. The wedding will happen on our terms. My parents will not be invited unless they meet 3 conditions: non-negotiable, public, verified. I counted on my fingers. 1. You will write a public acknowledgement of what you did to Giovanni Castellano, not a private apology to me, a public statement. You will submit it to the San Francisco Chronicle. You will admit the fraud. You will admit you stole his business. You will admit Patricia chose money over her father. 2. You will make a formal apology, not to me, but to his memory. You will visit his grave. You will place flowers. You will say out loud that you were wrong. 3. You will donate to the Castellano Legacy Fund an amount equal to what you stole, adjusted for inflation. In 1982, you took $140,000 through fraud and sale of his trademark. Adjusted for inflation to 2026, that's $380,000. I'm being generous. I could demand investment returns. That would be $1.8 million. I'll accept $380,000. The math was exact. Museum provenance training. Always calculate depreciation and inflation. If you do all 3, public acknowledgement, apology to his grave, financial restitution, then we can talk about rebuilding a relationship. If you don't, you will never meet my children. You will not be called grandparents. You will not attend family events. You will not be in my life. Pause. Those are my terms. Non-negotiable. My mother tried. Stacy, please. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You had 30 years to tell me the truth. You chose lies. Now you live with consequences. I took Alex's hand. We're leaving. Grandpa Bennett wheeled himself toward the door. Cousin Jennifer stood. I'm coming with you. I don't want to stay here. Cousin David stood. 26. Cousin Sophie. 23. Aunt Rebecca. My mother's sister-in-law. She looked disgusted. 6 of us walked out. 20 stayed. Exit time. 8:52 p.m. The party had lasted 2 hours and 22 minutes. 18 bottles of champagne remained unopened. Main course uneaten at 14 plates. $18,000 divided by 142 minutes. $128 per minute. As the door closed, I heard my mother sob. First time in my entire life I'd heard my mother cry. I didn't look back. The week after the party, my phone didn't stop. 12 of the 26 relatives reached out, supportive, horrified. We had no idea. Jennifer texted January 19th at 8:30 a.m. Stacy, I couldn't sleep all night. Your grandfather, our uncle by marriage, was completely erased from family history. We're on your side. Whatever you need. 6 relatives sent neutral messages. This is complicated. We love everyone. Let's not take sides. 8. Complete silence. Uncle Charles Harrington called January 21st. I'm resigning from Pacific Heights Club. I can't be associated with what they did. I'm donating $100,000 to the Castellano Legacy Fund in Giovanni's name. The man my father wanted me to marry chose my grandfather over him. My parents? 0 contact for 7 days. On January 25th, a lawyer sent a certified letter. Mr. and Mrs. White request privacy during this difficult time. All communication should be directed through legal counsel. January 28th. The San Francisco Chronicle published a small article. Page B6. Society section. Heritage fashion fraud resurfaces after 40 years. New scrutiny surrounds a 1982 business transaction involving master tailor Giovanni Castellano and local businessman Richard White. Sources confirm documents showing a partnership agreement that resulted in the loss of Mr. Castellano's North Beach atelier and his signature trademark. Mr. Castellano died the following year at age 48. Representatives for Mr. White declined to comment. 600 words. Not front page. But in the section my parents' friends read. Within 48 hours, the online version was shared 2,300 times. Hashtags, #Castellano Legacy, #SF Taylor Scandal. My father's LinkedIn went private January 29th. My mother deleted all her social media by February 1st. Gary Danko Management called them to a meeting February 5th. Membership under review. The article included one photo. Giovanni Castellano, 1978, standing in his atelier, holding a finished suit, smiling. I saw it and cried for an hour. I had his eyes, his hands, his smile. Alex and I got stronger. One night in early February, lying in bed, he said, "Your grandfather would be so proud of you. Not because you're marrying me, not because of the museum work, because you chose integrity over comfort. You could have stayed silent to keep your family. You chose truth instead. That's his legacy living in you." We started planning the wedding. De Young Museum, where we met. Guest list around 40 people. Friends and the relatives who'd supported us. I'd wear a vintage 1960s lace dress borrowed from the museum costume collection, properly insured for $35,000. Alex would wear one of Giovanni's surviving suits. Budget, $15,000 total. A statement against my parents' excess. On February 7th, I asked Alex, "Do you think they'll actually do it? Apologize and donate?" "I don't know," he said. "But here's what I do know. You don't need them to be free. You're already free." February 8th. I went to my childhood home. My parents were at their Tahoe house, avoiding San Francisco. Maria, the housekeeper who'd worked for the family 20 years, let me in. "Your parents said don't let you in," she whispered. "But you're their daughter." I went to the attic. Same place, 27 years later. Found a box labeled Patricia Childhood Clothes, Donate. Never donated. Sat there for 3 decades. Inside, the vest, navy blue. 4 wooden buttons hand-carved with leaf pattern. Size 4T, interior label, hand-stitched in Italian. Per la mia piccola patria, 4 anni, 1966. Con amore, Papa. For my little Patricia, age 4, 1966. With love, Papa. The vest was never for me. It was my mother's, and she'd kept it hidden, unable to fully erase him, unable to face what she'd done. I sat on the attic floor and cried for 20 minutes. Maria brought me tissues, sat with me in silence. Finally, I whispered, "He loved her. He made this with his own hands for his little girl," and she threw it away to pretend he never existed. I took the vest to Alex that evening. He examined it carefully. "This is museum-quality work, Stacy. Look at these buttonholes, each one hand-stitched, perfectly even. And these buttons?" He turned one over. He carved her initials on the back. PC Patricia Castellano, before she became Patricia White. We decided to preserve it professionally. Frame it next to the suit Alex wore that night. Both pieces of Giovanni. Both pieces that survived. I slept with the vest on my pillow that night. First peaceful sleep since the party. February 22nd. Exactly 5 weeks and 4 days after the party. A letter arrived. Handwritten. 6 pages. Cream stationery. My mother's handwriting. "Stacy, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I need you to understand. Not to excuse, but to understand. I was 20 years old in 1982. My father was old-fashioned, traditional. He wanted me to take over the atelier, to learn tailoring, to carry on his legacy. But I wanted law school. I wanted a different life." Richard was confident, ambitious, American-born. He represented everything I thought I wanted. When Richard showed me that contract, I saw it as an opportunity. Not to hurt my father, but to free myself. I told myself he'd be fine. He was talented. He'd rebuild. I didn't know Richard would destroy him. By the time I realized what was happening, it was too late. I'd married Richard. I was pregnant. I stopped. Pregnant? I never knew about a pregnancy before me. Miscarriage. You never knew. 1983, between the wedding and your grandfather's death. I couldn't go back. So I went forward. I cut my father out. I pretended he didn't exist, because facing what I'd done was too painful. I know you think I chose money. Maybe I did. But I also chose shame. I was so ashamed of betraying him that I erased him rather than face it every day. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know if I can. But I'm starting. Enclosed is a check for $10,000 to the Castellano Legacy Fund. It's not the $380,000 you asked for. I need time to get the rest. Richard is resistant. But I'll find a way. I love you. I'm sorry. Mom. The check was real. $10,000. Made out to Castellano Legacy Fund. Postmark. Tahoe. I didn't cash it. Didn't throw it away. Put it in a drawer. Wrote back. 1 page. "Mom, I received your letter and check. I appreciate the start. When you're ready to meet all 3 conditions, public acknowledgement, apology at his grave, full restitution, we can talk about rebuilding. Until then, I need space. Stacy." Mailed it February 24th. My father? Absolute zero contact through February 29th. I told Alex, "I think Dad's afraid that if he admits what he did to Giovanni, he'll have to admit his whole life is built on theft. And he can't face that. His identity is self-made man. Admitting fraud destroys that identity, so he'll choose the identity over his daughter." I removed him from my emergency contacts, updated my will to exclude him, told the wedding planner, if Richard White shows up uninvited, security removes him immediately. Changed the locks on my apartment. He'd had a spare key. Sometimes I wondered, will I regret this when he's dying? When I get the call that he's in the hospital and I haven't spoken to him in years? Alex said, "Maybe. But will you regret enabling him if you forgive without accountability? There's no right answer, Stacy. Just the answer you can live with." February 26th. I sent an email to the extended family. Subject: moving forward on my terms. Dear family, the past 5 weeks have been the hardest of my life. I've learned that my grandfather, Giovanni Castellano, a man I never got to meet, was erased from our family history because of fraud and betrayal. I'm not cutting off all possibility of reconciliation with my parents, but I won't pretend the past didn't happen for the sake of keeping peace. Peace without truth isn't peace, it's silence. And silence enabled this lie for 40 years. If my parents can publicly acknowledge what they did, apologize to Giovanni's memory, and make financial restitution to honor his legacy, I'll consider rebuilding our relationship. Until then, I'm protecting my peace and my integrity. I understand this makes some of you uncomfortable. I understand some of you think I'm being too harsh. That's okay. You're entitled to your opinion. But this is my choice. To those who've supported me, thank you. To those who haven't, I understand. And I hold no grudge. I'm marrying Alex. We're building a life that honors craft, integrity, and truth. You're welcome to be part of it. With love, Stacy. 8 relatives replied supportive. 3 replied critical. You're being too harsh. Family is family. Forgiveness is important. 15. No reply. Cousin Jennifer responded, Stacy, I talked to my mom. She said Patricia called her crying for an hour. Patricia wants to apologize, but Richard forbids it. He said, we don't negotiate with terrorists. Your dad is the roadblock. Here's my question for you. If you were Stacy, what would you choose? Team hard boundaries and $380,000 restitution, or team second chance with lower conditions? Comment below. There's no right or wrong answer. Only the answer you can live with. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. People ask me if I'm angry. I'm not. I'm sad. Sad for what was lost. Not money. Memory. My grandfather poured his soul into every stitch. My parents poured their energy into erasing him. And in the end, his legacy lives in museums, in scholarships bearing his name, in 120 apprentices learning artisan crafts, in 11 suits that will outlive us all. Their legacy lives in shame, in a newspaper article, in broken family relationships, in a daughter who chose integrity over inheritance. That's the difference between wealth and worth. I spent 30 years trying to earn my parents' approval, trying to be successful enough, polished enough, grateful enough. It was never enough, because their approval was conditional on my silence. I don't need it anymore. I approve of myself. The vest Giovanni made for my mother sits framed in my home now, next to the suit Alex wore that night. Both pieces of a man I never met but carry in my blood. Both pieces that survived erasure. I don't know if my parents will ever meet my terms. I don't know if we'll reconcile before they die. I don't know if I'll regret this choice. But I know one thing. I'm choosing the truth. And truth is the only inheritance worth keeping. February 29th, 2026. I'm at my desk at the D. Young Museum. Last day of the month. Last day before March. I open a new document. Type carefully. Proposal for Special Exhibition, Giovanni Castellano, Master of North Beach, 1935 to 1983. Curator, Stacy White. The exhibition would feature all 11 surviving suits from his 25-year career, on loan from private collector Alexander Bennett. This exhibition would honor a craftsman whose legacy was nearly lost and whose story represents the countless immigrant artisans who built American fashion culture. Personal note: Giovanni Castellano was my grandfather. I never met him. This exhibition is my way of introducing him to the world. I attach supporting documents, research, photos, loan agreements from Alex. The board will take 2 to 3 months to review. If approved, the exhibition would open later this year. Expected attendance: 25,000 visitors based on past tailoring exhibitions. I hit submit. Then I pick up the framed photo on my desk. Giovanni, 1978, in his atelier, smiling. I whisper, I found you, nonno. And now everyone else will too. Pause. You're home now.